welcome. You're watching NewsX World and I'm Megha Sharma. Let's take a look at the top headlines of the hour. UK, France, Italy, Germany, they all have hailed the Arab plan for Gaza reconstruction. This comes as a joint statement as the Middle Eastern nations reveal a plan which is against Trump's wishes. India and New Zealand are all set to clash in what promises to be an exciting final at the Dubai International Stadium. This match will determine the new winners of Champions Trophy 2025. The Israeli military has stated that it carried out an airstrike on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon on Saturday. This follows an attack on the group's military sites the previous day. Russian leader Vladimir Putin has no interest in peace, is what the European Union's foreign policy chief stated. This follows an overnight Russian strike that killed 14 people in eastern Ukraine. US President Donald Trump says trade tensions with Canada and Mexico will add excitement to the 2026 World Cup. He signed an executive order to create a task force for the event taking place later in the year in 2026 in America. South Korea's impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol leaves detention after a court cancelled his arrest warrant. Yoon remains suspended from his duties and the trial is still ongoing. There are at least 14 people that have been killed in Russian strikes in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. These strikes come after Trump threatened large-scale Russian sanctions and tariffs as he says Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine. Hundreds of people have been killed in clashes between Syrian security forces and Assad loyalists. The government fighters are accused of executing 311 Alawite civilians since Thursday. At least 12 people have been injured after a shooting at a pub in Toronto. The police are looking for 3 male suspects who remain at large. US President Donald Trump threatens new reciprocal tariffs on Canada, including 250% tax on lumber and dairy, citing unfair trade practices. The big story of the hour. The NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, who have been stranded in the International Space Station for the last 9 months, are finally preparing to return to Earth. Here's what Sunita Williams stated.
Just wanted to say thank you to everybody around the world, all the control centers, friends and family who are out there, all our trainers, all of the folks who have got us ready to come here and fly in space. It's a huge undertaking, and a huge thank you specifically for Butch and I to be joined into this International Space Station crew. I know that was a lot of trust and a lot of willingness to let us not only be part of the crew, but also lead the crew. So we are absolutely thankful for that opportunity, and hopefully we did you proud. To next commander, Alexei, thank you for your za druzhba, za komandirovka, and I promise you we are actively trying to find the passage back to the place we were before.
Now, the duo was initially set out on a 10-day mission aboard Boeing Starliner but faced technical failures that delayed their return. On Friday, NASA cleared a relief crew to launch aboard SpaceX's Dragon next week, and Williams and Wilmore are now set to return on 16th of March alongside 2 Crew 9 astronauts. Meanwhile, Crew 10 is scheduled to launch on 12th of March from Kennedy Space Center, now flying aboard the Endurance capsule due to spacecraft delays. Professor Madhav Nalapat on the telecast with me. Professor Nalapat, finally, it looks like the wait is over. Sunita Williams and her ally Wilmore are going to be arriving back on Earth in America at the NASA headquarters. This is going to take place on 16th of March. Date has been set.
Yeah, I'd like to say that that's going to be a very complex maneuver. For one thing, when they enter the Earth's atmosphere, it's going to be terribly hot, and hopefully the, the, the spacecraft will be able to withstand the heat. They normally do. There are only very exceptional cases in which it has not happened. And then they have to navigate very safely. I mean, Houston has got to navigate them very, very carefully back to safety in water. So it is a very complex procedure, a procedure involving very minute changes of direction. For example, it's like threading a needle every few seconds. It's not easy, and I can tell you very clearly, these are two astronauts who are among the best in the world. And of course, you heard the word Druzhba, Russian. I mean, frankly, it's a joint America-Russia collaboration.
Yes.
And now the new captain is going to be a Russian, and that shows the importance of what President Trump is attempting, a rapprochement between the U.S. and Russia. If these two
Right, Professor Nalapat, you rightly mentioned, you rightly mentioned that now the reins of the space station, the International Space Station, are going to be taken over by the Roscosmos cosmonaut by the name of Alexander Gorbanov. There were big allegations, statements, claims being made by the Trump government, by Donald Trump, by Elon Musk, that this was an alleged sabotage of sorts, that the Biden administration was not willing to bring back Sunita Williams in time.
Yeah, I would definitely not agree with that, Megha. There's not going to be sabotage of one's own spacecraft. I mean, the Russians are not going to do it, and the Americans are not going to do it. So I would not buy into that theory at all. I don't believe there's any question of sabotage. It was a series of technical glitches, and there are many. It's a very complex procedure, getting into orbit and then coming back from orbit. Extremely complex procedure. And I really congratulate the astronauts, the two astronauts who are coming back. And I pray that they come back safely and we'll all be able to witness it on television. But the reality of the situation is, I don't believe there's any sabotage. There were malfunctions, but these are part of the process of perfecting a technology. And SpaceX is working on perfecting a technology. And that's why NASA feels confident enough to ensure that this time around, the astronauts will be brought back. NASA has got a lot at stake in this, a huge reputation to protect. And I think we can rely on them to ensure that they come back in safety. We can rely on the two astronauts to pilot their way to safety. And I'm very hopeful everything will end properly. And there's no question of sabotage made.
Professor Nalapat, it's also, we have to be cautiously optimistic over here, because there have been two attempts that were previously made and they failed miserably. The Boeing Starliner spacecraft was not able to bring back Sunita Williams and Wilmore Butch back to Earth. This time around, an attempt being made by SpaceX. Again, how promising is this expedition going to be to bring back both the astronauts?
Look, Megha, let me tell you that NASA will be learning from every such failed mission. They'll be learning an enormous number of things. For example, you remember the Challenger just exploded in midair, and NASA, worked out what were the problems, where the leaks were, what the problems were, and I don't think we have seen that kind of a tragedy again. So, quite frankly, the aborted landings, they were aborted in the interest of safety. They were not aborted because of willful desire to abort. So, I'd only like to say that, yes, we have to be cautiously optimistic, but we have to be absolutely clear about one thing. NASA is determined to bring these two very brave astronauts back, and the Russians are determined to ensure that their cosmonauts join them safely on the International Space Station. So I have every expectation that this time around, the lessons will have been learned, and this time around, there'll be no glitch. Thank you, Meg.
Thank you, Professor Nalapat, for joining me and speaking your mind on this development. Let's move on to the other big story, where US President Donald Trump is escalating trade tensions with Canada, warning 25% tariffs on Canadian goods such as dairy and lumber. Trump said that the US has been quote-unquote ripped off for decades on lumber and dairy exports, and promises America will now retaliate dollar for dollar against Canada's tariffs. Trump granted Canada and Mexico a 1-month tariff suspension, briefly easing pressure on USMCA-reliant industries. Canadian Trade Minister Mary Ng is fighting back strongly, calling Trump's tariffs completely unjustified and cautioning against the harm they might cause to both economies. Markets have already been stung by Trump's trade policy, and with inflation rising and economic uncertainty building, many are worried that these tariffs may worsen things. Experts warn that further lumber tariffs may increase the cost of construction and intensify America's housing affordability crisis. The U.S. dairy farmers support Trump's move, but fear a prolonged trade war could hurt American producers. North American trade's future remains unclear as policy shifts emerge. Terry Milewski joining me on the telecast. He's a former correspondent at CBC. He's the author of Blood for Blood. He's joining me from Ottawa. Thank you very much, Mr. Milewski. And my first question to you about this back and forth that is bringing so many vagaries. First, announcing threats of tariffs up to the tune of 25% on Canada, then withdrawing them, then halting them again, and now a big announcement of a whopping 250% tariffs on lumber and dairy coming in from Canada into America. What is it that Trump is implying?
Well, whatever's next, by the time this interview is over, whatever I said at the beginning will probably turn out to be wrong by the end of it, because he'll change his mind again, which reflects, I think, a growing realization in the Trump White House that he really got this wrong. He doesn't really understand anything about how tariffs and international trade works. And that is why he has been lectured endlessly in the past week or so by leaders of American industry saying, you realize that this is going to hit us, the big automakers in the United States, that all of the damaging effects that you hope to impose upon Canada is going to hit us as well. It's going to hit American consumers, our customers, and it's going to hit us, the US manufacturers, which in part make our products. We make our products in the integrated North American market. We make some of those cars in Canada. So you're directly attacking us. And he's gradually seems to be getting the message, and that accounts for these zigzags, the up and down in the market as the market says, oh, he's seeing reason. Oh, he's not. Now he's imposing tariffs again. Now he's not. So it's a moving disaster for the Trump administration, and I think at the end of it, he's bound to persist with at least some tariffs. But for now, don't worry too much about this 250% on dairy. It's a very small market that is involved. The 250% that Canada imposes, it's a regional political problem, but it's a very small fraction of the trade picture across North America.
Terry Milewski, why is it that Trump is now focused particularly on lumber and dairy? Because up until now, the trade tariffs that had been imposed, as you mentioned, car parts, there's crude oil. But why suddenly the focus shifting to lumber and dairy exports from Canada into America? And what is this logic of 250% tariff being imposed?
Well, because of this local political imperative, basically it boils down to this, that if you want to get elected in a federal election in Canada, you've got to be nice to a few rural ridings in Quebec who have traditionally, successfully carved out a little area of protection for their product in their particular local market. And so they impose a 250% tariff on any American dairy products coming in, but only after the aggregate imports reach a certain quota. So at a certain point, then the 250 kicks in, but below that point, it's much less or nothing at all. So that's why I say that that's not a big factor. It's not a big part of the binational trade or North American trade to include Mexico. As for lumber, That is a long-standing beef of the Canadians, that American home builders are trying to keep out, the American lumber manufacturers in particular, are trying to keep out cheaper Canadian competition to keep their prices high. It's basically protectionism in the United States that is keeping out the Canadian softwood lumber, as we call it, which of course is a key ingredient in home building. That's in part why there is a housing crisis in the United States. It's because lumber is expensive and they want to keep it expensive. Well, but Canada doesn't. We're prepared to sell it to you for less, and so the Americans impose tariff. So these two particular industries are, if you like, canaries in the coal mine on the trade picture. This is where the shoe pinches. And this is where they feel the pain currently in two important industries, but they're not as important as, for example, steel, aluminum, autos. Those are the big deals.
Yeah, okay. And also, what are the political implications of this tariff war that Trump has waged on Canada? Well, political implications domestically, actually, because the elections are now going to happen very soon.
It's a very good question. And in a nutshell, Mr. Trump, I've already suggested that as a business matter, his strategy is completely backfiring. He's shot himself in the foot. The same applies politically. Guess who the best friend of the ruling Liberal Party in Canada is now? Donald Trump, because Trump has antagonized Canadians. He's attacked Canadians as a whole nation. There's a rally around the flag effect where Canadians are booing the national anthem at sports games and refusing to import or to buy American booze. They're boycotting American products from one end of the country to the other in Canada. And as a result, the Liberals who, if you'd asked me a couple of months ago even, I would have said that the Liberals, they're finished. They're going to be wiped out in the next federal election in Canada. Whoa, wait a minute. It turns out I was wrong about that too. It turns out that now the Liberals have enjoyed a revival because the topic has completely changed. Instead of the topic being how unpopular is Justin Trudeau, now the topic is how much do we hate Donald Trump? And of course, now the polls are showing it's neck and neck in the next election, whereas even a month ago I might have said, no, the Liberals are finished.
Absolutely. That's interesting, and we'll keep a close eye on what happens in Canada. Elections are looming and whether these tariff wars will at last end from Trump's end. Thank you, Terry Maliski, for joining me and sharing your views. Shifting focus to the other big development, where India have been in an impressive form throughout the Champions Trophy, finishing at the top of Group A after facing strong competition from New Zealand, Pakistan and Bangladesh. They continued their dominance by defeating Australia in the first semi-final. India's unbeaten run has made them the team to beat as they head into the final. On the other hand, New Zealand, led by captain Mitchell Santner, faced a 44-run defeat to India in their final group match. However, they bounced back strongly, securing a crucial victory over South Africa in the second semi-final in Lahore. Now, the two teams are set to clash in what promises to be an exciting final at the Dubai International Stadium. India, with their impressive record, are the favourites, but New Zealand will be determined to pull off an upset. All eyes will be on the final showdown as both teams aim to claim the coveted title. Moving on to the other big story of the hour, where Russian airstrikes have killed at least 14 people in eastern Ukraine, including 11 in Dorophilia and 1 in Bogodkiv. These attacks come ahead of peace talks in Saudi Arabia, where US and Ukrainian negotiators are set to meet. The US President Donald Trump has called for sanctions against Russia while suggesting that cooperation with Moscow might be more feasible. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian President Zelensky is pushing for a mutual ceasefire on aerial attacks as a starting point for peace talks amidst ongoing Russian missile and drone strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure. At least 12 people were injured in a shooting at a pub near Scarborough City Centre in Toronto at 10:39 p.m. local time on Friday. Authorities have not disclosed the full extent of the injuries but confirmed that 4 victims have non-life-threatening wounds. The suspect, wearing a black balaclava, was seen fleeing the scene in a silver car and remains at large. Mayor Olivia Chow expressed concern, stating that the police chief assured her all necessary resources have been deployed. The investigation is ongoing and further details will be provided by the authorities. Pope Francis has expressed gratitude to his supporters for their prayers on Thursday through a breathless audio message that still managed to uplift the spirits of his faithful amidst growing concerns over the 88-year-old pontiff's health. The Pope's pre-recorded message was played on loudspeaker at St. Peter's Square in the Vatican ahead of the evening recitation of the Rosary Prayer. It was the first time his followers had heard his voice since his hospitalization nearly 3 weeks ago. Although the Pope has shared written messages from the hospital and the Vatican has provided twice daily updates on his condition, he has not been seen in photos or videos since 14th of February when he was hospitalized following a series of lung-related health issues, including bronchitis and double pneumonia. There are 2 army trucks on a storm aid deployment in eastern Australia that collided and led to 36 people getting injured who were then rushed to multiple hospitals. New South Wales ambulance sent paramedic teams to the scene near the flood-prone city of Lismore, including 2 helicopters. Cyclone Alfred made landfall in southeast Queensland and has weakened but still brings dangerous winds, heavy rain and flooding. The cyclone initially hit coastal areas with destructive force, damaging homes, infrastructure and power lines, leaving thousands without electricity. Authorities have ordered evacuations in several flood-prone areas as rivers overflow, submerging roads and cutting off communities. Emergency services are working tirelessly to help stranded residents conduct rescues and restore essential services. Although the cyclone has weakened, meteorologists have warned strong winds and heavy rains could continue for the next 24 to 48 hours. There is still a high risk of flash flooding and landslides, and officials have urged residents to stay indoors, avoid travel and follow safety warnings. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol left the detention center on Saturday. He was seen walking out of the detention center, waving and greeting supporters that had been waiting for him. This came after prosecutors decided not to appeal the court decision to cancel the arrest warrant of the impeached leader. Yoon, in a statement released through his lawyers, said that he bows his head in gratitude to the people of the nation. Yoon remains suspended from his duties and his criminal and impeachment trials continue due to his martial law imposition on 3rd of December. The criminal case is a separate one from his impeachment trial, with the Constitutional Court set to decide in the coming days whether he will be reinstated or removed from office. Myanmar's military junta said that it would hold elections in December 2025 or January 2026. This is the first election since the military overthrew government in the 2021 coup. Junta leader General Min Aung made the statement during his visit to Belarus, stating that the election would be free and fair, with 53 political parties ready to participate. The military coup had taken control on 1st of February 2021, overthrowing Aung San Suu Kyi's party over unproven claims of electoral fraud in the 2020 elections. The coup led to mass protests that was brutally suppressed. The junta has repeatedly delayed elections, citing security reasons. In 2022, it dissolved National League for Democracy, making sure that her party would not participate. With that, we come to the end of this bulletin of the World Report. Thanks for watching NewsX World. Stay tuned for more news and updates from around the world. Bye.